In this video, I want to show you how to beat the land investing game in 2025. And it comes down to one simple framework that you won't find anywhere else. Let's dive in. All right, guys, before we get started, it would mean the world to me if you could give this video a thumbs up. My mom looks at every video, and it's kind of embarrassing when these videos have like 12 likes. So for my mom, give it a thumbs up. All right, how to beat the land investing game in 2025 and beyond. Frankly, this will probably be applicable forever. Now, there's a lot of ways to beat the game, and I don't want to fool you. There's probably not one singular silver bullet, but what I will say is I see more people making this simple mistake here than probably anything else. And in fact, when new Leah members join the community, I see they are plagued by this systemic issue. And I was plagued by it for a long time. And in fact, if you calculated the missed earnings because of this blind spot, it's probably in the millions of dollars that I'll never get back because I simply was ignorant. Alex Hormozy talks about this concept of like an ignorance tax, right? It's like, how much money are you losing today because of your own ignorance? And if you really calculate it, it gets pretty scary. It's a huge sum of money. Now, to kind of put all of this together, you look at someone like Corbin Garcia. He's a Leah member. He's not even 21 yet. He's about to turn 21 this month. So we'll say he's 21, but he's 20 currently. And the last 30 days, he's brought in $82,000 of profit on contracted deals. He's working on a deal right now to buy for $170,000, sell between $300,000 to $400,000. That came from 4,600 mailers. That's the power of the Leah model. That's also the power of what I'm going to share with you guys here today, okay? And I'm curious too, if you guys disagree with what I share here, let me know down below. I'm curious to get the conversation going. If I'm wrong, I would like to know, because what I'm going to share here is pretty counter to what's talked about. And this really boils down to motivation versus price. Now, to back up a bit, we need to first clarify that all of the value in the land business, or nearly all of the value in the land business, gets created in the acquisition process. So if I wanted to learn how to beat the game in 2025, this is the area I'd be spending most of my time. Now, there's a few other variables that are important, like the quality of your data, the markets that you work in, how you price that data, what kind of sellers you're going after, if you can solve problems for sellers, all those things. But I think this is the highest leverage point. So we're going to talk about that here. Motivation versus price. This is the simple concept which says, if I were to give you 10 new leads right now in your CRM, what would you personally be using to judge them? As in, what would you be using to say, this is a bad opportunity, this is a good opportunity? And this is where most of the disconnect happens, is that people are using the wrong criteria to judge their seller leads. And by virtue of that, they end up throwing away opportunities. In fact, there's this faulty notion in land which says that deals should be brought to me on a silver platter. And that silver platter looks like a lead that comes to you that says, hey, Jimmy, you offered me $20,000 for my $100,000 property. Let's do it. I'm ready to sign. Almost never happens. It can happen. And the funny thing is, a lot of people have built their business just pursuing those deals. It's what I call the lowest hanging fruit. But that is a very inconsistent, lumpy, all over the place business that almost puts you in the role of a victim, because either you get lucky or you don't get lucky. I'm trying to be a creator, and to be a creator, I need to be in the driver's seat. So what most land investors would be doing in that example of those 10 leads is they're judging the quality of those leads based off of the price the seller wants. It's the most obvious thing to grade your leads, but it's the worst marker to use. And the thing is that once you start cracking into deals like this, buy for 170 grand, sell for 300, 400 grand, you're not dealing with sellers that are going to come to you and say, yeah, I cannot wait to sell my property for half off. So down, let's do it. I'm ready to rumble. Even if they are willing to do that, and even if some part of them wants to do that, the natural human response is to never put all their cards on the table. That's just not how they operate. Much like how you don't operate by giving your highest and best offer out of the gate. The first price, the second price, the third price, the fifth price that's discussed is really meaningless. And so instead, all of our focus should be on the motivation, not the price. Now, how do we understand a seller's motivation? Well, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but there's three things that I like to think about. Now, really, the motivation can be broken down as the seller's why. Okay. And there's three layers to the why that we need to establish. Why are they selling now? Why have they not sold before? And why are they selling off market? If you can get those three things right, the price they tell you doesn't really matter. Because if we can unearth that motivation, that gives us the staying power to stay in the fight. And that gives us the ability to properly mark our leads. Something as crazy as marking a lead versus hot or cold is the difference of you or your team working them correctly. In fact, if you marked a hot lead as cold, it might not get touched for the next 60 days and the deal's probably dead. So how we stage and label our leads is very important. And your ability to say, hey, there's opportunity here. I'm sticking around like a pit bull with lockjaw, even though we haven't agreed on price, is the only way that I know to consistently generate deals and to generate really big deals. And the funny thing is there's a story for all of these questions, but really no one's asking them. So let me go through a few examples to kind of paint some color here. The why sell now. What is the typical answer that we're looking for here? Well, it usually looks like there's some kind of inflection point in their life currently. That could be relocating. That could be someone passing away in the family. That could be divorce. That could be taxes. That could be unforeseen life expenses. That could be putting a child through college. There's some kind of inflection point to where 6 months ago, this wasn't on their radar. Something changed. And now this is something that they're willing to move forward with, or at least this is something that they're entertaining. And the sale of this property has to solve some other problem. There is no real motivation for someone that just says, yeah, I just think I want to sell it. That almost never happens for any of the deals that we do. There's always a reason there. The irony is most land investors don't even know what that reason is because they don't bother ever figuring it out. And you will be able to tell the emotional charge behind that reason. You will be able to just feel through the context of the conversation, hey, yo, this is important to the person. Okay, cool. I'm taking a mental note of that. This is an opportunity where there's motivation. Second, why not sell before? Well, it's kind of obvious. This current problem wasn't happening before, and you want the seller to address that. Hey, I was actually planning on building a house here, so it was never on my radar, but I've owned it for 20 years and this unforeseen thing has happened. And I think now's the time to let it go. You want the seller to establish that. You want them to address that. You also might learn, hey, I had an offer a few years ago. It was at 50 grand. It was just a little too low. Well, cool. What if we came in at 60 grand and we got this deal done now? Would that work for you? So now you can kind of use that as ammunition to say, what did they respond to before? What didn't work about this before? In a lot of cases, we hear from sellers that they did have an offer before. Now, sometimes it's a fugazi, sometimes it's totally made up. Honestly, sometimes sellers tell us crazy things, but we do often glean really important intel from this question. And the third point is why sell off market? And this usually is a timeline phenomenon. It's, I need to get this done in the next 30 days. I need to get this done in the next 60, 90, 120 days, whatever it may be. And so when we pair all these together, you've got all the ammunition you need to properly establish what kind of lead this is, warm, hot, nurture, cold, whatever it may be, and to give yourself the staying power to stick in the fight. And the best deals often require staying power. The best deals rarely materialize overnight. And what I always tell my team is that we get paid based off knowing where to spend our time. If I were to look at 1,000 leads, could I figure out the 10 that need me now, the 100 that need me next week, and the 500 that need me over the next 6 months? And then remove the rest of the noise, right? Let automation take that over, put that in the background, but categorize your time correctly to spend it in the most profitable areas. And price will never tell you that. Motivation is the secret. Hope you guys like this video. Again, give it a thumbs up for my mother. And if you guys want more exclusive content like this, join us inside the Land Investing Accelerated Facebook group. I put the link down below for y'all.